I'm Eva O, and this is the Teakink podcast. I've been a dominatrix since 2011, and I would like to spill the tea on my life. Thank you for listening.
Hello. I've listened to podcasts from other sex workers in industries around the world, and one or two of them have mentioned that they have dealt with a lot of rivalry in their business, like people trying to slate them so that they can basically steal their clients from them. And I'm wondering if things like that have happened with you, and if so, how do you combat that?
So, stealing of clients, I don't know if I would see it that way. If the client wants to move away from me, this is their major loss. No, it's probably an incompatibility of time and personhood, and that's totally fine. If somebody doesn't have that focus and dedication, it's not interesting to me anyway, and it's better that they move away and I have more room for the things that I like, which is focus and dedication. But so that's kind of my attitude on stealing clients. It's not really my thing. If anything, I send my clients to my friends often because I'm not in the country and I want to give them work, and it's just something fun to do. And I think that I can't really say that I've met anyone that has my style or, vice versa. It's not really. I think that because as individuals, there's such nuance to how we are and how we interact, there's not necessarily going to be immediate crossovers. I think there can be similarities, but I just see the interactions as too distinct to really feel like there's enough overlap for me to feel threatened. But anyway, I don't know if I'm the kind of person that feels. I'm not a very competitive person. I guess it's maybe the crux of it. Somebody literally asked me that question a few days ago, and I think I tried to explore it and try to think about how I am competitive. And I think what we ended up coming to was that I'm not. And I think that this is largely because, I have had siblings at different points in my life. And I'm trying to think about how I navigated that and how maybe that's a part of it. But I was always my mother's main focus. So maybe I'm too much in the little tiny world where I am so important and therefore shielded from what competition feels like. But that's not entirely true, because I do remember some sibling interactions where you're the oldest and the strongest, unfortunately, the advantage is that you can make everyone cry far too easily. But I remember being the baby also in some of these configurations and having to slowly plot my revenge. But I think that these kind of behaviors are not very helpful or enjoyable for me in a context where it's not an agreed upon container that is BDSM and a scene. It literally makes me feel like my body is just totally disjointed. I don't know how to do that outside of that container for whatever reason. But yeah, so the question was about rivalry and stealing clients. And I guess I've kind of talked about how I don't necessarily see it as stealing and why, and and why I might be made up in the way that sees it that way. But I guess my little bubble means I've been quite naive, and I maybe still am very naive to how a lot of these interactions might unfold. But I'll tell a couple of stories about how I've come to maybe get a taste of this rivalry that some people speak about. And I mean, I started off in a BDSM dungeon, right? Where there was like 25 coworkers. And I guess other people would immediately go to thinking, of course, there's rivalry and competition, however. But me, my naive little brain, was there to work, to learn, to respect everybody who was there because they were all there before me. And it didn't really think about competition. And only actually after that place shut down and that I've had time to think about it, do I realize that some of them saw me as competition and the things that they would do to try to maneuver that. And I find it hilarious now. I mean, I was there because I needed to work. I needed to do something for work, and I did enjoy it. But I was hitting enough of a target in terms of financially paying my rent, etc. And I was enjoying the work, and it was teaching me things. And those were the things that I was there for. And so that was what I was focused on. But if I think back, there was a lot more going on. And I mean, some of the mistresses were incredibly helpful, but some were very much into sabotage. There was this one thing where I'm sure a few of them were in on it. Naive little me, it was very much in the early days. They basically said that you can't leave until they come. And I mean, this isn't the case. They pay for time and that's it, right? But nobody ever corrected that over the year or so that I was there. It's just something that they told me that had to happen at the beginning. And I stuck to that rule because I'm an idiot. And it's something that I even carried with me outside of the dungeon until, I don't even know, I realized, my time is valuable. The time is the time, and it's not about the orgasm necessarily. So that was a small dig at me. And they also used to do things like, I don't know if this is like a competitiveness or rivalry or however, but they used to, later on, some of them told me that they used to listen to me through the walls. They would literally put their ears to the walls to listen to how I would do intros and to how I would run sessions. And and I never thought to do that. I mean, I so naive. I would always ask whether I could observe or, yeah. So, I guess that there are just a lot of behaviors that exist that I am just so pathetically unaware of, but in a way that I think helps me live a happier life. So I'm happy in my tiny little bubble. And maybe a part of me keeps me naive in order to do that. Maybe. But yeah, if anywhere, definitely the dungeon where everybody has the same title, using the same facilities, it's going to be somewhere where I guess these things can come out. And if I didn't feel it there, then maybe I'm not going to feel it anywhere. I remember this one mistress also was really trying to get into my head once. And I mean, I grew up partially in Singapore. And when I don't know if they'd still do it now, but for kindergartners, they would take you through hygiene lessons. And I mean, it's great, but I don't know if they do this anywhere else. But they do things like literally spending time with you, teaching you how to brush your teeth in the correct way and how to wash your hands according to WHO standards, etc. And so, because I follow the rules, I've washed my hands like that ever since. And, oh God. And so this is how I wash my hands. And after a session, I was washing my hands in the sink, in the changing room. And this mistress, who I realize now didn't like me very much, said to me, "Why do you wash your hands like that? Do you like work in the medical like industry?" Which actually a lot of people who work in kink seem to. But I said no, and she said, "Oh, you do it so intricately, like you're trying to wash the sin of the job away." She said it like that, looking at me just from the side. And it was actually quite magical, a little moment. But yeah, I think she was trying to fuck with me. But again, so naive, just a little bit like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's your opinion, great." My hands are clean now. So yeah, the dungeon was a magical experience. It's a good thing that my naivety protected me from a lot of these, the negative possibilities of these interactions, because that meant that it was such a valuable and interesting and educational experience that has benefited me as opposed to scarring me, even though it had that potential. Because I mean, it's a group of 25 incredibly skilled psychological players, isn't it? So if their intentions were not that good, there were things that could be done. But there were also such golden people in there that probably, probably just confused everything even more. So therefore, I didn't have time to think about anything. But rivalry outside of the dungeon days. I'm going to set the stealing clients thing aside because we know that doesn't necessarily apply to how I operate and think. But when I felt a sense of competition rather than camaraderie, maybe is how I will take this. I was working in isolation for so long. It was just about the work. It wasn't about having community. I didn't understand what that was. I wasn't a kinkster before. I was a dominatrix, a professional dominatrix. I was a professional dominatrix first, and then I understood that I was a kinkster and that I would like a community later. And this point only came in maybe about 6 years into my career, 7 years into my career. I'm in year 13, 14 now. And it was when I joined social media. And I was so happy to have found Twitter and to have found this group of DOMs who had Twitter profiles, and I could read the ways that they were thinking and like the photos that they had. And I understand now that a lot of it is marketing and it's about appealing to clients and building a brand as opposed to authentic thought. But me and my naivety was just excited to find people expressing themselves in this particular way, in a way that some would appeal to me and some would inform me, and actually all would inform me. And I got very excited. I started a profile. I chatted, connected, commented. I was living in Bali at the time with no community, and so it was my community. And people started to gossip. Now I know. Again, always late to the show, but now I know. I've heard back that people were gossiping that I was a scammer, that I wasn't real, because I guess I had already had like 6 or 7 years of photos by that point, and so coming out of nowhere with an identity and knowledge and photos like that maybe looked a bit weird. Now I realize. But even going to the point where some were saying that I was a man, and I don't really know where they were going with that one. But but yeah, it was interesting to be to understand that I was a subject of gossip, because gossip can be a very uncomfortable thing for me to be around and partake in. And so I shy away from saying or putting anything out in the world that I don't feel that I am ready for that individual to hear. That's kind of just how my brain functions. And so being the subject of that was very puzzling for me. Explaining all this to you makes me understand how naive I am. I know I've said that many times this episode, but I wonder what I'm going to call the episode. It's going to have that in the title. But yeah, so it was interesting to be the subject of gossip. How did that make me feel? I guess it was a bit of a shock, and I think I'm still very happy to be vulnerable and warm and coming close to people. But now I realize that I can't give people more than that one moment of interaction with me. Because how my personality works is that I like to be present, but I think I used to put in more effort in building a relationship with people because I inherently believed that people had good intentions. And I think it's taught me that, not to say that people don't want to have an honest interaction at a core, but I think there's a lot of things that are built up that prevent them from doing that. And those barriers are going to cause grief for me. And so I need to be more careful with how much of my care and attention and vulnerability that I give on an ongoing basis with people. So I think that's what all of these things happening has taught me. And unfortunately, this can also even happen, not just even on the social media sphere, at a distance with people that I've never met or met once, but it has happened also with people who I've given more time to. And yet another lesson. And I think that, some people that I called close friends for a while. And again, I understand that it's not necessarily ill intention at a core, but it doesn't manifest in a way that makes me feel like I am interacting in a way that nourishes my life. And so I've had to learn some things around that too. Now, I've had old friends for almost my entire life, and my family are such a constant for me. And so I haven't really made newer friends, except within this industry in these last 7 years or so. And so navigating, creating new relationships is actually, interestingly, like a new-ish skill in some ways. I've moved a lot, I've made a lot of connections, but deeper relationships that are newer is, it's a whole new skill in some ways. And I guess especially within this subculture and this industry that is quite marginalized, the potential for bonds can be heightened because of the isolation from the rest of societal acceptance. And so it kind of make these connections maybe more intense. And maybe that's what I mean by trying to learn how to navigate that. So I've met people, social media, some of these people become closer. I think that there's alignment. There seems to be enough. And then eventually things come up to head where the rivalry is not only just this gossip that I hear of, but is literally a tension that is felt within the friendship. And this is so uncomfortable for me and so foreign, and I don't know how to deal with it. I don't think that I need to, and I should. And so I've had to just understand that there is a way of interacting and valuing interaction that's different, and I need to distance myself. And it's been hard, but I made those choices and felt better for it. And I think it's about an alignment of values and an alignment of how people like to interact and how people see the value of someone else in their life, and that to be more on a personal, caring level rather than a reputational one. And that's been something interesting for me to learn also. And it's something that a part of me hates to have to remind myself, but I need to remind myself in order to sustain my joy. So I guess there's some different levels that have been happening in terms of my learning about rivalry or competition and how it doesn't help me and how I like to live my life. And yeah, hopefully all of my blunders that I think I've mostly run through quickly here, have something to say to you. But this all said, some people love the drama and love the sense of competition and the backbiting, and I can see how it's thrilling in a soap opera sort of way, but I don't watch much television. So, so it's really about aligning, I guess, with the way that you want to live and reminding yourself what the facets are that feed that and nurture that, as opposed to not. And I'm not saying that maybe one is better than the other, but better for the individual than the other, maybe. So, well, I'm very happy in my little bubble that I've created. I'm pretty sure I've created this one now. And for all the incredible people who I am close to, who are in that little bubble with me and who are so kind to me. And I love you very much. If you're listening, you don't have to listen to my podcast, but if you are, you know you are. I love you. But anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for that great question. And speak to you next time.